Well, I didn't quite expect to be talking about Mr. Pandaria in terms of news just quite yet, but here we are. If you've either been stuck in Twilight Dungeon Purgatory or in Dragon Soul trying to get all the bosses down on Heroic, then you might have missed a post yesterday where the WoW vendor has now been updated to a 5.5.0 version of Classic. So basically, the first stage, or first phase, should I say, of Mist of Pandaria. Now, why is this relevant and what on earth are you telling me for? Good question. Well, if we think how long Firelands lasted for, which was 16 weeks in total, or 4 months, then we can expect Dragon Soul to be roughly the same. Dragon Soul is widely thought of as one of the worst raids in WoW's history, and while I don't actually believe that myself, I actually think it's quite a good raid, it did last far too long, which left a sour taste in everyone's mouths. Now, for that reason, I don't expect Dragon Soul to last any longer than Firelands did, and I think actually around 16 weeks of it being current content before the pre-patch kind of makes sense to me. And with Mr. Pandaria actually having tons and tons of new content, like so much new content that we've never had an expansion so far which comes with quite so much, I expect the beta to actually be slightly longer than any of the previous expansions as well. If you just think for a minute, we've got a jam-packed opening tier of raids, challenge mode dungeons, pet battles, the class changes are absolutely huge, so is the talent system, so you can expect there to be lots of things that need to be tested, lots of things that are going to need to be fixed, and hopefully lots of changes as well, because there still are a few things that I'd like to see Blizzard intervene with so we don't get an exact carbon copy of original MOP, but I've spoke about that in other videos and I'm sure I'll speak about it more in the future. So needless to say, it's going to need a little bit more than the measly 7 weeks that Cataclysm got, and it still launched with just as many bugs as we was experiencing when we was actually beta testing it. So if we was to say around 9 to 10 weeks of beta, or even if you wanted to cut it a little bit short and say 8 to 9, it's going to have to launch around the halfway mark of Dragon Soul, which is also around the time that I would expect the buff to come in. If you played Wrath of the Lich King, you'll remember in ICC the stacking buff that was coming out every couple of weeks that gave everyone damage, health, absorbs, healing, all that jazz. Well, originally in Dragon Soul, they actually done the complete opposite. They reduced the health and reduced the damage that all of the mobs and bosses do inside Dragon Soul, and this stacked up 5% at a time. Now, there was a buff, Data Mind, which we've not seen used anywhere else yet, which kind of looks like they're actually doing it the opposite way round and will be getting the buffs, which feels much better, because as you're getting more gear and as the buffs stacking up, everyone's doing more damage. It's a lot more fun than the bosses just dying a little bit quicker, but your numbers remaining the same. So around the time the beta starts is kind of when I would actually expect this to happen, which, to be quite honest, is week 2 now of Dragon Soul. I would be expecting the beta to start for Mr. Pandaria around week, let's say 6 or 7, which allows a good 10 weeks of beta testing before they're then going to go into the pre-patch. So actually, the end of next month is kind of around the time that I would expect the beta, so seeing Mist of Pandaria on the vendor build just makes sense. And the vendor build, to my knowledge, is where they send it to all the suppliers, so people like AMD, etc., so drivers can be made for the game. So there's still a way to go, don't get me wrong, but I don't see it being too long, maybe a few weeks, before it's actually then on their internal builds, which you can publicly then see on Waggo Tools. Now, while I don't want to wish away Dragon Soul, because actually it's kind of took me by surprise, like I've said in several videos recently, where I wasn't expecting to enjoy Dragon Soul quite as much as I am, but I do actually think all the bosses in there are quite fun. And if you watch my last video where I was kind of a little bit upset that we didn't manage to get Deathwing down, we've got him down now, so go us. No? No one? Just me? Alright. Well, I'm pleased about it anyway. Now, if we look back at the roadmap, we know during winter we was going to get Hour of Twilight, which we've got, and we've got the dungeons and Dragon Soul. We've got everything that they promised, so all the Cataclysm content is now done. I don't mean done as in I'm sure people are going to be progressing for another, X amount of weeks, but everything that is meant to be delivered has now been delivered, including the auction house updates and other things that we weren't expecting. And when we look at the Season of Discovery side of things, they've got Nax. So really now we're looking forward to spring. And when does spring start? March. Because in summer we'd be expecting the pre-patch, and in autumn we'd be expecting launch, and spring is going to be that period where we're going to be beta testing. I think that's exactly why the logo sits there, because that's going to be the getting ready for Mr. Pandaria time for a summer launch. Summer officially starts in June, so if we get the beta at the end of March, it will line up nicely, where we get 2.5 months maybe max of beta to get everything right and not have a horrible rough launch like we did with Cataclysm, and then the game launches in the summer. So I think everything's lining up really well with what they originally said in the roadmap, and we're starting to see things trickle through for Mr. Pandaria. I've got a few videos that I want to get out about Dragon Soul still, and I'm going to be working on probably 1 or 2 of them tomorrow, so I'm going to try and get those out over the weekend, and then it's full ahead with MOP. Everything MOP class changes, talent changes, professions, like you name it. Guides for gold challenge modes, like it's going to be pretty intense. There should be quite a lot of MOP content coming, but as I say, I want to get a few videos out still about the Dragon Soul bosses and sort of tactics that we use in 10-man heroic, which we personally found made it easier for us, and we haven't really seen anyone, or not many at least, doing the same things. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, as always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.